Well, thank you very much, and my name is Lema Bete. I'm with Oxfam. We'll continue with the introductions of the next session. But as I looked at all these things which people are talking about, I just reflected before our partners come in on a couple of things to say we are facing one of the worst drought in 40 years. And the predictions are in the next 2-3 months there will be La Nina. How are we as communities adapting to that? And these are practical issues which we are putting in there, which we would like to be able to look at. And then the other issue which I just thought we could put in there as well is the issues of inequality. I know the issues of inequality were from the research which we said, we realized that 1% of the world population is contributing about 16%. And the issues of inequality, if I put it back here, why is it that cholera and all those other issues happen in Caledonia, Epworth, and all those areas? And the other issue which we are seeing as Oxfam as well is the nexus between climate change and the health. The issue where we are realizing now to say the time when there is a drought time, during that other time when there is drought, the spikes of cholera increases, and when there is flooding right now, the issues of cholera increases. So let's look at those other issues as well in terms of climate change and health, and especially I know one of them is cholera. There are other issues like malaria and all that. And then the other issue which I wanted to put in, which I was highly highlighted as well with the women, is the issues of climate change and gender issues and the protection, which is critical to us. What we are seeing right now, especially right now, when we did our work and discussing with the people right now, what we are seeing because of the issues of climate change and the people don't have food right now, we are seeing that especially women and girls, they don't have any options, because the options where they were going to do casual work is no longer there. And then now the casual work no longer there. The only thing they are doing is transactional issues, and then the issues of HIV and AIDS and the STIs are increasing. So those are some of the things which I just thought we could put in there and all that. And one of the things which I was talking about, like right now, SADC is saying they need about 5.5 billion, and the whole issue, 61 people are affected. And the issues which we're talking about is coming back to the issues of financing. And right now, where we are looking at it and discussing all that with the other members, it's only funded 11%. And yet, this year we are going to have another La Nina again. So the question now is, how do we put some of those practical issues into the perspective of where we are? So those are, I just thought of picking up some of these which we are looking in there in terms of all this, to say how do we look at issues of movement as well, which we are seeing, issues of markets as well, like right now with the issues of food, how are we opening our borders, how are we looking at issues of movement of commodities like food from one place to the other, how are we looking at some of those? So those are some of the things which I just thought we could include as we discuss the climate justice. And as we work with Oxfam, one of the things which we are doing right now is we have got a strategy of localization, and all our work is we want it to be bottom-up approach, and all our work in Zimbabwe, we are working mainly with local partners. So what I will do is we have got 2 local partners who are here, which is AQZ and the Green Governance, who would be able to give us perspectives of what's happening in the field. But before they came in, I just wanted to bring in some of those nexuses between climate change, health, climate change, inequality, because we are seeing right now cholera next, it will be in Caledonia. Why doesn't it happen in Borodin? Why does it keep happening all those? So those are issues of inequality which are even seen in this environment where we are looking at some of those issues where we are saying, well, how do we then address that? So as we move on, I will introduce Mr. Tongona, who is from AQZ, to come and give his speech, and then we'll ask green governors to give their video, which will be there, and then we'll open up for discussion. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. From Aquaculture Zimbabwe, my name is Garkai Mose Tongowona. I'm sure we are all aware of the mantra, UN mantra. Leaving no one behind, leaving no place behind. I am a true embodiment of that mantra. Right, we are one of the local partners that has been mentioned by Oxfam in Southern Africa. And I'm happy to say, working with Oxfam, it's been a rewarding experience for us as a local partner, because the issues of localization I had led from Marange, sort of complaining about the negligence or the neglecting of local communities when it comes to issues that affect them, the issues of development. Right. So as Aquaculture Zimbabwe, we are working mostly in the southern parts of the country, and together with Oxfam, we are building resilient and inclusive communities, targeting at least 50.5 thousand households in Kutu and Buera. Though in Buera is another local partner, Sapphire. So from this kind of initiative, or from this kind of intervention, we are targeting mainly what we call the farmer field school approach, or the farmer field school model, which becomes a learning center or a learning hub in various wards. This is a sort of a center where we are bridging the gap between extension and research. There are issues to do with indigenous knowledge systems, and there are issues to do with the gap that is between the research and the farmers themselves. The interpretation of scientific information when it comes to implementation. Yes, there are issues that have been raised that climate jargon lacks in vernacular. So this sort of a farmer field school is a place that we are hoping to bridge those kind of gaps. So the approach also includes what we call climate resilient villages. As an institution or as an organization, we target mainly what we call water-based interventions. So where we believe that water is the center, is the hub that brings life. So our interventions are mainly water-based. So what do? We go into the communities. We work with the communities to identify potential areas where we can set up water infrastructure. And in this case, our infrastructure is mainly the weir dam, or the small water bodies that we construct at community level. Why at community level? Because we know they've been excluded from the huge water bodies, from the huge water projects, like the Tokwe Mkosi, you name it. I think it's 2016, when it was commissioned, we heard that Tonga Tilet had poured resources into Tokwe Mkosi's final accumulation, and gotten what can I say? They gotten a guarantee that they would use the water for the next 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. Then after those 10 years, only then can we talk of giving those resources to local irrigation, construction, or setting up in the Nwanese range where the displaced people had been put in. So our model now, the weir dam that we construct is part of what we call the climate resilient village, which we are promoting. In this CRV, we target the upper catchment area, where we do catchment area protection works, and try to give benefits from the weir dam or from the water infrastructure to those that live on the upstream of the catchment area, because their activities affect what it is that is going to happen downstream. Then for those that live downstream, we also then set up irrigation schemes for them using the same water, so that they also see the benefits of protecting. So it's a micro watershed approach that I think we can showcase, and that I think other development partners here can also take a leaf from. Because if we do not work with the local communities, I mean, we are simply perpetuating the exclusion that has been going on for so long. Right, then in the same vein, we are alive to the fact that there are issues to do that we need to promote, is to do with the mitigation to the climate change issues at the local level. And there, our activities, the kind of activities that we promote in the agricultural activities, such as conservation agriculture, promotion of indigenous grains, drought resilient grains, which we could actually have brought here, it is not been for the short notice, to promote adaptation. And then after adaptation, we are looking at strengthening resilience, because all the other commercial crops, like this year of the El-Nino year, we've seen them failing, and what actually succeeded in the fields is the small grains, which we are trying to promote. And we say if we could actually scale such kind of crops, we will be strengthening the resilience of the communities. And we're also looking at issues to do with the indigenous chickens, as opposed to the commercial chickens, the commercial broiler chickens, as these are the hard type that can exist or that can survive on a shoestring budget in terms of the feed. And then the other important thing that we are promoting as a local partner is the issues to do with markets. Our communities, yes, can do well with the small grains, can do well with the indigenous chickens, but there are issues to do with market linkages, which we are also trying to improve their connectivity with the markets. And it's a matter of actually being there with the commercial buyers to promote the importance of the consumption of our indigenous breeds, and also see the commercial benefits from the. So we also do have another model that we are promoting as an institution, that is the community-based disaster risk reduction institutional support mechanisms. And here we are consulting, we are in consultation with the communities to identify the needs at their level and how best we can include them in the planning, execution, and implementation, and also how their voices can be amplified in terms of participation in the government structures at the district level and also at provincial level, and ultimately, hopefully, at national level. And in this forum, we hope these elements can also be carried into the regional communique. Right. So, issues to do with I highlighted that we are in Butu, but we are also in Masvingo, we are also in Menezi. We've also done quite a number of districts across the country, but the model remains the same. The infrastructure is tangible. When we talk of resilience, strengthening, and when we talk of sustainability, is the infrastructure that remains even after, long after the project cycle has come to an end. The communities remain with their infrastructure, and they are open to further developments in terms of benefits from the infrastructure. It's unlike the kind of interventions, the piecemeal kind of interventions that we're being talked of, where people talk of advocates without the infrastructure side of things. So from my end, I think this is what is we are doing in Washington. Thank you.
green governance. I suppose, do you want to start with the video? Okay, our colleague from Green Governance will just start by giving a very brief presentation, and then we'll have a video. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm given 3 minutes, but I'm a woman of many words, so I'll try. I talk too much. So I'm Clarence Lufarmasia from Green Governance Zimbabwe Trust, and we've been working with Oxfam and Climate Media for Economic Justice Project. And it's a media-based project where we produce media projects on the just energy transition and just sharing information and knowledge about the energy transition issues emanating in Zimbabwe as a whole. So today I didn't really come here to present on what exactly what we're doing and to be shared in the video, but I just wanted to talk about the intersection of food systems and natural resource governance. That's why I came here, so that I can talk in brief why it's very important that when we talk about climate justice issues, when we talk about climate change issues, we should also consider the intersection between the food security of our nation and the Southern African region, and also the aspect of natural resource governance. Because I sat in rooms and we talk about food. I was even having a dialogue with Rosary back there. We talk about food, the production aspect of food. We talk about farming, we talk about agroecology, which is good, it's important. And production is very important because in the production we also use a lot of natural resources. That's the soil, that's the land, and a lot of nutrients and stuff is depleted within that process. But we also have other processes within the food system. We have the processing, the distribution of food, the consumption of food, and the end part of food, like waste management, in managing the waste of food. So there are a lot of things that are involved in what we say food security when we talk about food security, and it all intersects with the resources. How we need fresh water, how a lot of fresh water sources are being depleted in the processing of food. What do you like? What do even people like? They like Russians. They like all those nasty foods, all those types of food that we consume. There's a lot of processing that goes into that. We just consume and consume. But there are a lot of resources that are wasted, water, all those issues. And I was looking at it that the food sector alone globally, and even within this Southern African region, it's like 60% of the food sector. Like it contributes to 60% of biodiversity loss globally. But yet we're saying we are into food agriculture, but there's this first, I'm just talking about this first. There's this aspect of food that we are ignoring, that we may be ignoring in the spaces that we're sitting and in the spaces that we are occupying. So I'm just here to say, let's place emphasis on food. I had a lot of things to say, but 3 minutes. Okay. All right. Let's place emphasis on food and natural resources. How do we manage the two? How do we ensure that our region is food secure? And also, how do we manage the resources that we have as a region in terms of distributing the policies and the laws that govern the food distribution and food policies within, not only in Zimbabwe, but across borders? All those issues. That's what I just wanted to emphasize and leave you with those questions in your head. I would have made a PowerPoint presentation, but today I'll leave you with questions and just thinking about how those two things can intersect and meet. Thank you so much. So I'm leaving this time to Louis, and he's going to show a documentary of Chimani Mane and Mozambique.
Thank you very much. Good morning, colleagues. So as mentioned before by Gladys, my name is Louis Maroa. We work together at Green Governance Zimbabwe Trust. So, as an organization, I think there are some things that were mentioned by Shamiso when she came up front here. She was talking about the lack of opportunities for people that are actually affected by climate change in such platforms. How people that are affected by climate change are not given a platform to speak about things that affect them at a level where decisions are being made. A woman in Chimanimani in Chipinge does not have the space like we have here to discuss these pertinent issues, does not have the resources to be part of the dialogues that happen at COP28 where decisions that affect them are made. So with that in mind, as New Government Zimbabwe Trust, what we do is we try our level best to capture community voices and amplify them. We want communities to be part of dialogues that speaks to policies of how interventions are crafted by governments within the SADC region. So what we have done now is we want to play a video that we captured voices of community members that were affected by Cyclone Idai, so that when policies are being discussed, these are also put forward by those that make policies. So let's watch.
Cyclone Idai ndakatambuzika maningi. Munharaunda yangu ngevanhu vangu vasofereri mwintu vakasofereri pakaya Cyclone Idai, miti yakadonha ikarova dzimba dzikapwanyika, marwizi ese mukasara musina miti nepekugezera kuasha papasina pekugezera, mukazadhibhano ese akapera kupwanyika. Vana vakasofereri, vana mai vakashaya basa rekuita, vaienda kumerikadho vangasisina zvokutengesa, zvese zvakapera kupwanyika.
Inini nemhuri yangu tairarama negreen, rima tingati magreen crops tichitengesa, ndichiendesa kuchikoro, ndangoti ndichikadha everything zvinongodiwa muupenyu kuti tinararama. But vapakaenda Cyclone Idai, hatichakwanisi kuzviita nekuda kwekuti mvura kusina, zvitumbu zvizhinji zvakatoputika zvinobva zvaoma. Kuti ndichawana mvura nditore mvura yakubva kure ndisvike panapa, vakurema tingati marozi emapombi aya tinenge takuda makilomita kuti nditore mvura isvike pamwe. So kuti ndichaita zvandaiita hazvichabuda. Saka upenyu unenge watooma kupfuura zvandai mararamiro anoita kumashure kuve zvanga zvakanaka. Ndifunga madhamu yangu yaita kusvika pakuzaya magwere nekutengesa magwere manyoro kumashure. But now hazvichabuda.
Ini semunhukadzi dzinodzangaichaita doti upenyu usati raoma tairarama nekurima, tichirama nekutema zvatinorima ndozvataitengesa, tichienda kumusika tichitengesa mafurutsi edu, tichitengesa zviwanikwa zvedu zvese zvatinoona munharaunda medu muno. Kase zvangu zvakatotikanasa pakuti pakaya dutu mupengo, zvinhu zvadairarama ndizvo zvadaitengesa zvakapedza kuendedzwa nemvura, uye mandairima macho makapera kuchereka mukasadza makoma.
Cyclone Idai yakatafekta zvakawanda, takapwanywa dzimba, nhanemba ingarako yakapwanyika ikaenda. Izvo ndakuraramira muimba iyi ndine vana vakomana vasikana, ichitamwe sofreri yake Mozambique, totorara tese nevapwere mumwana mumumba imomo, takatende magadheni, trabalhar, vai agora. upenyu hwese hausimambira mushe mukaza disciples like that.
Ndinoona sekuti number 1 tikakwanisa kuwana rubatsiro rwekuti ndiwane mvura kuti ndikwanise kuita irrigation ndoima zvinhu zvangu ndinenge ndatowana start yekuti ndishande ndikwanise kubatsirika then nekuonawo dzidziso yeruzivo dzidziso zvakafanana nenyaya yeprogramu yepfumvudza yetinga negovernment inenge ichitidzidzisa kuti torima sei zvinoenderana nemamiriro ekunze avepo because isusu tine zvinhu zvitava ndakajaira zvataita but zvaitobuda nekuti zvaienderana nemamiriro ekunze panguva yacho but now zvinenge zvasiyana because mamiriro ekunze arikuramba ichishanda.
Mabhurandi pese akapera kuerera nepakurima pese handisina magadheniwo akapera kuerera namvura zvese zvakapera kuerera namvura tikapona nekurima izvi saka zvese tiri kutambudzika tiribe chino pano isu tikare yedu pano basa asi hatina tiribe tiri kutambudzika.
Inini sekulini pamba pangu yakasvika ndakutiza muti wakudonha ndikabva ndaguruwa mukumbo uyu ndikasofereti mwindu ndikaenda kuiswa Jesu kuchimoyo ndikapedza sezimezvezvi asi izvozvi zvinane ndiri kufambawo padoko padoko asi ndiri kusofereti handifambi netsoka ndinofamba nemotora zado kana makombi mari handina. Murume wangu vakafa kare kare. Maridu akaenda kutara atina murume urundibatira wana na mabasa ekushanda ndipamisana pesa yekodhairi.
Inobairiyo totibatsira inotipa zvidzidzo zvakasiyana siyana kuti tisabarengera kuti chirongwa climate change chiini uye kana chikaitika zvine zvamunoita munharaunda. Inotibatsira kumadzimai edu echidiki nokuti madzimai echidiki aya akutomhanyirawo mumisangano yakadaro and vamwe vacho vaata madrr committee kudikidza negreen government. Tine zvimwe zvidzidzo zvevalue addition tikatarisa kunoko kuchimani kwakazara mafruits but pamwe pacho taisaiza mafruits aya aingorara rumunda but takataurwa nezvevalue addition tikati like mapineapple mabanana tokwanisa kuatora kana aibva togadzira jemu togadzira machips tichingogadzira zvakadii zvakasiyana siyana.
So, thank you very much. I believe the emotions are a bit high now, because sometimes you witness the realities of what we're discussing, rather than just the talk show of how people get affected. You see that that lady, she's a widow. She doesn't have anyone who can assist her. But what we are discussing now is important in terms of shaping the assistance that she can get. So, as Green Government Zimbabwe Trust, what we do is we try by all means to engage with those that make policies. Right now we are talking about the climate change bill in Zimbabwe. Do we have women voices included? Do we have youth voices included? Or it's a policy that is discussed at higher level where people that are actually affected do not have a voice? So we just thought we'd just show you this so that when you leave this place, you have something in mind of the picture of the things that we were discussing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, colleagues, and for this video and as well as the initial presentations. So I think we have learned a lot in terms of what the partners working with Oxfam were working on, and of course to issues related to the current policies and views that are being discussed, that are the voices of the community, the voices of the women. Are they really represented You also saw from the video the destruction that the cyclones, did to some parts of Mozambique and as well as Mozambique. I think of Zimbabwe. This is you heard there was a mention of what we call loss and damage. So loss and damage is not really just destruction of property. It is, of course, but livelihoods can actually be taken away. So many people were doing a different number of activities that they can no longer do, and it has made life a bit difficult. And but of course there is an issue of non-economic loss and damage. There are other things like even that family set up the network, the relatives being separated by these kind of events. Some of them, even if you talk of the graves that are just destroyed, people always live around where their ancestors, where their uncles, where their grandfathers and mothers are buried. So they just want to be close to that, but that is separated, and those are really destroyed by these disasters, and it's really a challenge if you look at this. So we need to really interrogate the issues around the interventions that our colleagues talked about, the issue of water-based interventions, watershed approach. I think that's a good one, and of course the issue of interpreting the scientific information for the farmers. I think this is very important. Therefore, the issue of farmer field schools, climate resilient villages. I think that's quite interesting. So what we want to do now is as we conclude this session, I just want to give an opportunity for anyone who has a question, anyone who has a comment, especially the burning ones. So we need to start discussing from the presenters and as well as even just reflecting on the video itself. I can see 1, 2, 3 hands in that order.
Thank you so much. My name is Rabashin from the Institute for Young Men's Development. My question is directed to the Aquaculture Zimbabwe presenter. We spoke about community-based disaster and risk mitigation plans. It is quite evident that young women, number one, based on age, are often excluded or often bracketed under youth and therefore not then involved. Secondly, due to some gender-imposed roles and also a home-based care approach in most of these disasters, they carry a burden more when it comes to disasters in communities. So I wanted to check when they speak about their participation of communities in the planning, implementation, and also evaluation of the community-based disaster and risk mitigation plans. What strategies or approaches do they have in place to ensure there is meaningful inclusion and participation of young women and girls? Thank you.
I'm Tilai Masora from Gokwe. I'm sorry, I don't know my livelihoods. In Pataura now, the climate change. And pane vataura vachiti ivo vanokwanisa kundotaura nehurumende panyaya dzekunogadzirwa kwemabills. I think things are not done really enough. Climate change.
Sorry, if can we have the one colleague to just then interpret for our colleagues? Not really, but just for people just understand what they are saying. So I just want to acknowledge our colleagues from Zambia who just arrived here. It's unfortunately not close, but finally they are here, so we are able to. So can you just summarize
Pakandiputi now yaifana kutangira at least wokuzvikoro at primary level muZimbabwe tine yatoti tree planting is not enough to plant a tree once a year. We should have tree farming from schools. Kana kukaita ma-cyclones, it means gowa kusisina. Isu kwatinogara ndo kwamaona uku kune zhara vana vatofenda kuzvikoro. Ma-program food feeding schemes aya should be done at locally. Kana vanhu vakarima ma-fruit trees pakaitorwa value additions vanongabigwa policy ndezviyo mwana anokwanisa kupasa. Saka tikutouraya the generation yevana vamozvara imi asi penyu vari right because vari town. Ko vari muma-marginalized areas, what are we going to do about it? We are just seated and drinking these waters and doing what? But we are not doing enough. At the local level, village to village, word to word. Tinokumbira vatira vanonotaura vachita zvemabhiribhiri zvezve. Let it be very practical. Not kuungana chingoma munhu.
I hope I'll be able to catch what she said. Her main concern is that the issues that concern climate change are not starting from the local communities and from the schools where young children are. She's saying education about all these issues should start from primary school upwards, and even the feeding schemes and such things tend to take place in the urban areas, in leaving out the marginalized areas, isn't it? Yes. And she also mentioned that we have a tree planting day in Zimbabwe, just one day here. She said that that's not enough. We're not doing enough. We should maybe have something like a tree farm where each one of us plants a whole plantation instead of just one tree.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, now you can talk and then we can get some feedback.
Thank you very much. Bishop Kanye from Smart Council of Teachers. I won't take much time. As a church, we have a philosophy to say, let the people speak. And as a church, we are all over up to the what level we are there. What we have realized is that when you come to women, they are not given a space, just money, to talk what they want. In a way that looking anybody about having 5,000, they will tell you when we are doing our programs, they will tell you there's so many women, 3,000, so many youth and so many men. But are we envisioning them all to hear what exactly are their challenges? Only thing we know is elite approach. So I feel let's give them space that they also put their inputs and not wasting time. We've been affected by the culture. Culture is, you can do anything. You can make awareness, but culture, when it comes to you, it bridges off women to also open up. That is clear. I remember one time in Case Day in Matilele, there was a workshop. And that workshop, when it started by 11 o'clock, it was closed because the women themselves in the community closed it. They said, don't come here and disturb our culture. So culture and what we are doing, I think we should do that. Lastly, let's not, when I was saying this video, floods all over, let's not take our minds to go to a point whereby these people are in floods, these people every year. Why every time when we, as SCC, we always say, why every time there is no alternative? This year people are hit by, they are still there. Approach people with alternatives. Teach people to move from those places and go to better places. You'll find these people, they are still waiting there. While we as organizations, we are told that the flood is coming. So I think let's think things with alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that intervention, and I think the challenge has been. So if you can just brief on
Yeah, okay. Just to respond to the issue of young girls and women, in community disaster risk reduction issues. We are alive to that fact, to the fact that women and girls are often excluded, and that in times of crisis they tend to eat last and eat the least. And so, yes, the way we work, we have got a sort of a consortia of partners selected across various expertise. So what the approach, the strategy that we use is called the GAUS approach. This is the Gender Action Learning Systems approach. We have a partner, Fachiki Trust. I'm not sure if they are here, but they are here. So yeah, they are the ones that actually streamline those issues in that particular process. So they did facilitate and carried out training sessions for those issues. And also the Ministry of Women Affairs, they also do come participate in all the processes. And yes, to also acknowledge what my sister said in terms of tree planting, we also streamline the issues of agroforestry in almost all our interventions. And we have revived quite a number of orchards in the CRV's climate resilient villages. And also, we also seek funding specifically targeting women and youth. We actually do have support towards a certain project that I spoke of for indigenous chickens. It's actually targeting specifically women and youth. And I think if partners could actually work more towards a targeted, a specific group targeting, I think we can address some of the marginalized groups in our communities. Thank you.
Anyone else? I think there was a colleague from Green Governance. Do you need to just say something? Okay, yeah, I see, of course, there are some people who are struggling to just, I don't know what's happening. There are some colleagues who are just talking to me here that they are failing to get through the system, so we're just trying to see if we can get support. But I see one colleague from South Africa, I think he's just joined. But I also want to, this is a People's Summit for Southern Africa, right? So I would love and I would like to listen to other voices from our neighbors. I think with Malawi, even as far as Uganda. If there's anything to comment, I think that would be nice, because I think this also resonates to what we are doing, and even the current of Malawi. Each time the cyclone hits, I think normally it's of course Madagascar, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and then also Malawi. So I was just looking, I don't know from the partners, I think in terms of issues around the hazards, especially the cyclones, I think I was mentioning that sometimes we also need to, if we show a bit of statistics, you know, it will help even sometimes leaders and the people who are in power. Sometimes, you know, when we as civil society, we are providing that extra. We take that extra mile to get statistics, to give figures, so that at least action can be taken. You see, I'll give you one small example that I always see. That sometimes, you know, a traffic light, you know, at an intersection is always put when somebody dies or when people die, right? Otherwise, if they're just accidents, cars hitting on each other, you know, sometimes city council doesn't care, right? And when maybe 10, 15 people die and there's a fatal accident, then a traffic light is set up. So what I'm just trying to say is we have the evidence, let's show the evidence, let's give numbers, let's give dollars in terms of even, it was going to be interesting just to see in this video how much that destruction cost instead from the cyclone in died. So that it then informs police in terms of what really needs to do, and then what they really need to do. And then also, it also brings seriousness, right? And then there is an issue of political will that we always talk about. You know, sometimes political will also is broken. So sometimes we, you know, sometimes our leaders say, yes, we have the political will, but if we want to define what political will is, but if that is not backed by data, that is not backed by figures, translate that into finances, the livelihood lost, you can actually cost, how much was lost, and then somebody will say, oh, I think we need to do something. Then the policies that sometimes sit in the shelves can then start to be operationalized. So governments have their own processes, they take their own time, but sometimes we can quicken up things. Do we have any colleagues from other countries? We don't have. I'll just have one and then we'll move to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the good presentation. As I said, my name is Twange Kondo from Malawi. I'll talk of experience. Yes, we are here talking of climate change. How many women are in decision-making bodies who are talking about climate change? Are we involving them? Because sometimes we can talk to say we are having remedies, we are having activities to mainstream or to prevent climate change, but those activities, are they gendered? Or do we go to those women when they are being affected, as we were seeing that woman is talking? Do we meet them and sit down with them and say, what are your needs? Sometimes when the climate has happened, when there is drought, there is a cyclone, we just come with clothes in a big lorry to say we are donating. We just come with maize, we just come with all those things, we say we are donating. But before donating, did you sit down with those people who are affected to say, what do you want? And sometimes there are this type of resettlement to say, we are taking you because you are maybe near the rivers, and we are taking you and we'll give you another land. But that land, is it environmental friendly to them? So that's why maybe they will go there and come back to their original land. So we need to sit down and look at it to say what are the root causes and how can we address, and there should be the solutions to the problem. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That has been really insightful. So can we, I would like to invite Action 8 to just come through. Isaac, is Isaac here?
Sister.
I thought it is music was going.
Thank you very much. As we continue discussing on the issue of the impact of the El Nino on the is it okay? The impact of El Nino on the women, particularly in Southern Africa. So I'm going to talk a bit about the regional overview, the impact of the El-Nino-induced drought on Southern Africa. I think it's not for the first time that we've had El Nino in Southern Africa this year. For the past 20 years, this is the 8th event of El Nino. And I think as a region, we should have learned some lessons. We can't be experiencing El Ninos and repeating same approaches in terms of how we handle the event. It means we are not learning anything. The mostly affected countries in the region of Botswana, Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, and which one? And Zimbabwe. All these 6 countries have actually declared a state of national disaster following the El-Nino. And the question that remains is, how then are the women affected by the El-Nino-induced drought? There are many ways that they are being affected, not only women, but also the girls and the children. Drought, whether caused by El Nino or otherwise, brings water scarcity, reduced food availability, and also causes disease outbreaks, creating rising food prices, which all in the process affect women because they are the ones that are in charge of all these things. They also disrupt supply chains for various food and services, and therefore creating limited adaptive capacity. And it has been established that in all disasters, 80% of the people affected are women and children. Where will be the men? That's the question. Is it because the men will be somewhere in the atmosphere? Yeah, but anyway, women are more in numbers, and they are usually in the mostly remote places that are usually marginalized, and therefore their adaptive capacity is always low. And while men are usually in the urban areas where the adaptive capacity is a bit on the high side. So from 2022, Southern Africa had an estimated population of about 370 million people, of which 41% of that population was living below the poverty line. That is by 2022, which is barely 2 years back, isn't it? And then we have been hit by this El-Nino and also COVID in the past 2 years. The full impact of this El-Nino is yet to be established because we still have some about 6 or so months to get to the next harvest season, which is around March. But there are a lot of protection risks that are associated by this drought, but most of them also goes back to affecting women and children. Sexual exploitation and abuse. As women try to fend for their families, they encounter a lot of challenges and temptations. And other men or those that are well, they actually take advantage of their vulnerabilities. Forced child marriages, rise in child labor, exploitation cases, discrimination and stigmatization in food and education distribution, increase in gender-based violence, psychological and emotional abuse, and of course, trafficking of persons. During drought, there's a lot of migration from one point to another. And as we speak now, I think the migration traffic to South Africa is actually increased in this year as people try to go to South Africa to fend for their families. But the methods that they use to go there are valid, and some of them are very dangerous. We've heard a lot of women being raped as they try to cross to South Africa, and some of them are killed in the process. There's also a lot of trafficking of children in the process. And more important, at a localized level, there is increased human and wildlife conflict. And this human and wildlife conflict usually affect mostly women, because as women go out to look for water, as women go out to look for food, they are the ones who actually encounter the wild animals. Now, where is SADC in all this matrix? Up to 2022, there was what we call SADC DRRs strategy, disaster risk reduction strategy and action plan, which was viewed to be very reactive. And apart from being reactive, that strategy did not talk much about resilience building, did not talk much about protection issues. It was also not in line with the SADC framework, but in 2022 they revised it. But even though after revising it, it still lacks a lot of issues that can empower women to participate at regional level. Because if we have a regional strategy that is supposed to protect women, that is silent on women participation at that level or in those structures, it means even at localized levels in each country, the implementation of that strategy is going to mirror the same issues that are being discussed in that strategy. So we need at that level to push in these issues of protection risks or protection issues that affect largely women and children. So that they start from those levels of regional strategy coming down to the national strategies and national legislation. As we speak now, our Civil Protection Act of 1989 does not even talk about protection issues. You'll never even hear about any word that talks about resilience in that act. But that is the instrument that we use at the moment. So, as I conclude, I want us, as we discuss these issues of protection mechanisms during drought, to be not only issues that are discussed at institutional, national levels, but should be factored in the national policies and legislation, so that we can actually walk the talk by implementing and enforcing certain policies that have to protect women in times of drought like this one. Thanks.
Thank you so much for just sharing, Isaac, for sharing with us, issues around. I think protection issues are all more often, ignored, and but it's good that things are really coming into the fore. But I just want to, before we ask any questions, I have here Precious one, and then I have Anlene, and then we have Felistas.
Sister. Thank you so much, Sister Moderator. Yes. So finally, we get to have our session. Thank you so much. I was thinking we're about to go for lunch without doing our session. And you know how the energy is after lunch. So I very much like the title of the session, which is Rethinking the Role of Women in Food Security and the El-Nino-induced protection risk in a changing climate. And kindly take note of the young women aspect. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that this is about women, and the women are going to be here. And then, has anybody ever heard of this sentence which says, when you are in Rome, do what the Romans do? Yes. Anyone heard of that? All right, thank you so much. So because the title says women, today we are going to take you in a world of women. So we are going to be doing what women want. Sister. Thank you so much. So already we have started the sister. So we say sister before we speak and after we speak again. And then there is also another thing that I would want the crowd to join me in. We are women here, and because of the things that we face, the things that we go through, very often we are faced with issues of confidence. So sometimes when we are in a crowd like this, something happens with our confidence. But we also do have another strategy that we do in order to make our confidence levels higher. So I will ask my sister Kuda to come to the front, and then we'll just give a brief. So we just issue in brief in terms of what we would want to do in order to get the confidence levels of these young women here very much high. So we celebrate our sisters. As we celebrate them, we are basically celebrating our bodies. This is also one thing that makes us to lose our confidence because of what we go through in our communities. So whenever we say something brilliant, either actually brilliant or perceived to be brilliant, or what I think is brilliant, which may not think is brilliant, but we still celebrate. And the way we celebrate is we clap hands in a unique way. So I will demonstrate with my sister Kuda here, and Sister Memo can also join. So in show now we say Maoko. Maoko is clapping hands. So I will say Maoko, Maoko, Maoko. You got it? Okay. Maoko, 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 Maoko. Chesty. We are celebrating our chest. Thank you so much. So just one round with everyone. If you may stand up, we just do that as we celebrate this young woman. Maoko, 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 Maoko. Chesty, chesty, chesty. Sele, sele, sele. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Sister Kuda. Thank you so much, everyone, for helping me to celebrate the young women and women who have come to the front here. And then, in just a sentence, I will ask the ladies that we have in the front here to introduce themselves. And then as they are doing so, what we are simply doing for this session is we are putting a face to the climate conversation that we've been speaking about. Yesterday, we had the 4th Regional Dialogue for Non-State Actors, and I remember there was one session that I attended. It was on climate justice. And then we needed to input something. I remember personally being so confused that I couldn't even get any value to that session. Because the question that was asked was, when you're talking about climate justice is one of the thematic areas, we want a way forward. The conversation that was put across was, we have got a climate debt, then there is something called carbon credit swap, something, I don't even remember what it was about. So when I was standing there as a community member, an ordinary community member, I was like, okay, in my community, I experience climate in a certain way, and I definitely want climate action because I'm living this, I'm experiencing this. But then when the conversation was here, it was about climate debt. It was about how do we build a fund and what. I'm sure that is very important. It's really important. I understood today in the first session. But then at the end of the day, when I go back to my community, I'm like, we talked about climate debt. But did it like really address my situation with climate? And when I go back, how is it going to address my situation? So this session, I think it actually gives a perfect opportunity to then link those issues of climate debt. Climate debt, it remains important, climate financing. But on top of that, or as part of that conversation, bringing the faces of the climate debate that is happening, the climate conversation that is happening, we need to put a face to that climate discussion. The experiences of young women and women in their communities, what are they experiencing? And then at the end of the day, how do we link that to the issues of climate financing, climate debt, so that we then have a holistic conversation that addresses the issues of financing, but that is also addressing our lived realities and climate, and that also gives solutions to us on a practical level. So, to the young women who are here, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and then after introducing yourself, if you may briefly, in just 3 minutes, tell us your experiences with climate change. How are you affected by climate change? And if I may bring it a step down, when I'm talking about climate change in this aspect, to make it simpler, we're talking about the El-Nino-induced drought, that drought that we faced in the 2023-2024 period. How did it affect you as an individual, or also even the communities that you are representing? How did it affect you? But specifically, if you may in your response include how it affected you as a woman, as a young woman, in a way that's different from how it is affecting men or other people who are outside of being a woman or a young woman. So I'll start from here, introduce yourself, and then talk about how you are affected specifically as a young woman.
Sister. Yeah, my name is Tedilonge Museme from Tongobara Refugee Settlement in Zimbabwe, in Chipinge District, under Action 8. Yeah, drought has caused severe hunger and starvation in Tongobara Refugee Settlement and in the surrounding hosting communities. Due to the hunger and starvation that has been brought by drought, young ladies and women have to travel about 10 kilometers and above in search of work so that they sustain their living. So and in return they have to be paid back less than $3 US that cannot even sustain their well-being in buying food and other needs. So in the same cases, there are also issue of taking loans, and they have to retain its interest. This can be in terms of cash and in terms of food as well. Let's say, for example, you take a loan that costs, you take a loan in the form of food. Let's say 25 kgs of rice costs $22 US, and because you are taking it on credit, then you have to pay back $25 US and more. So due to this, give reason to rise in theft and other immoral behaviors in the communities. In addition to the challenges, there's also a rise in physical trauma due to the loans, and also in terms of to add on top, there are other local shops where you, wherever you want to go and take a loan, then you have to submit or leave behind your identity documents so that when you repay back the loan, then you collect your documents. So this as a risk, you can risk even losing your identity document at the end. To add on top of that, another challenges, we have poor sanitation for girls and women as well, because of scarcity and little supply of water, where we have to travel long distances in search of water to meet the needs and agricultural and domestic needs. And also there is limited decision making to access quality education due to drought. This is due to, let's say for example, in Chipinge district, which our area lies in the 5 regions, where we normally receive very little rainfall throughout the year or dry spells, and though that most of the people rely on agriculture or on farming, and since there is no enough farming products, so the women, they are not they are to be stopped on ongoing and afford quality education and give chances to the male side. So in request to that, we are requesting to introduction of irrigation schemes, drillings of bores, and also education, awarenesses on climate changes, mainly droughts, and how to reduce it. Thank you.
Sister. My name is El-Nino-induced. I'm a young man from Binga district in Zimbabwe. So, my community has been hit hard by drought causing water shortage. So, as young women, we travel long distances in search of clean and safe water for domestic use. Being a woman here is tough. Traditional gender roles often expect us to focus more on household chores instead of our own dreams. Another biggest issue we face due to drought is early marriage and teen pregnancies. Families struggling with economic hardship sometimes marry off their daughters for financial stability. The drought also disrupts education, leading to high dropout rates among girls. So to combat this, I recently led an awareness campaign to educate families and youth about dangers of early marriage and teen pregnancy and promote education and gender equality with the aim of creating a brighter future for girls in my community. So I collaborated with the government official, local leadership, and many more. So in this case, I'm urging our leaders to prioritize support for drought-affected communities like mine, and also including economic opportunities, clean water, and food aid.
Sister. Sitting in front of you is Memory Chakahoza, a member of the Institute for Young Women's Development in Bindura. As a young woman who lives in the marginalized communities, I was very negatively affected by the El-Nino-induced drought, in the sense that where I come from, in Bindura municipality, we use tapped water. So at times you find tapped water is found on taps twice or thrice a week. As young women, we are forced to wake up as early as 3 a.m., 4 a.m. to look for water. Recently, there was a young woman who was raped when she was going to fetch water in the early hours of the morning. This is so disheartening, and these are some of the problems we are facing as young women and women in the marginalized communities. Apart from facing these issues of sexual harassment, rape, we also face a lot of gender-based violence from some of the men who are sitting right in front of us here. Because when you go there to fetch water, you find there are a lot of queues. The husband is waiting while sleeping in bed, waiting for you to come back, so that when you come back, you continue cooking as well as preparing for him to go to work. Even if you are a young woman who goes to work, you are expected to perform the same as men who wake up at 8 a.m. while we wake at 3 a.m. to look for the water, to take care of the babies. And I think it's good that men, it's a time to have knowledge that it's no longer a time where we sleep and wait for women to do everything. Because the drought has brought a lot of challenges to women. It seems as if men are ignorant about this. There's a lot of talking about men, but when you go back at home, what are you doing to help the wife or your girl child? You find that when we go to schools, girl children wake up at the early hours like I highlighted before, but the boy just wake at around 7 to go to school at 7:30. Do you think the girls are at an advantage when the time of performing at school? No. It's not. Right, let me take it in closer to home. on the issue of quality of education, on the issue of quality of food. You know, these days ukafamba, you find out kuti unoona mai vachitaura vega avapengi mai vavai. It's because vaka-affectwa emotionally. You woke up mangwanani, hausuzoti ndobikirei vana, even though the father is there. Hautozoti vana vachadye chii. You know, emotional stress as young women takavhiringwa zvakanyanya because of that. But it seems as if many are there, but I have a feeling that little is done to make sure that women are safe. Then on the issue of reduce the quality and the quantity of food, how many of us are still having 3 meals a day? We are using the 0-1-0. 12 to 1. Then tozodya manheru kana togona kuzodya kusvima 2-3 tongosanganisa breakfast nelunch ipapo. So as young women we are very much affected. Tostarisa zvekare nyaya yemaschool dropouts. Vana vave kutadza kuenda kuzvikoro as a result of this drought, El-Nino-induced drought season yatakafesa. So ndoona kuti as young women who are coming from the marginalized communities, it's good that when the policies and whoever the relevant stakeholders are convening for meetings like this, I think there's need for them to be decentralized, even to have a meeting like this in Binga, so that we can have more voices of those who are directly affected, that we have others speak for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So, like I said during the introductions, my name is Precious Kadwala. I'm from Malawi. Yeah, don't have of Africa. We've heard a lot from Zimbabwe, but then the cases are not different. It's the same issue. We're talking about the Southern Africa. We are one, and we're facing the same challenges. This is the whole essence why we as people, we as Africans, we as people from the Southern Africa, we need to rise up together, to speak with a single voice, and speak to whosoever is responsible to our cases which are facing. I'll take you to a district which is called Sanje. Sanje is a district which is located in the southernmost district in Malawi. You check your maps, you look at it, it is found at the lower part of Malawi. Due to climate change, every burden which is related to climate falls on these people who live in this district. And the majority, as we all know in Africa, ladies are more as compared to men. And it is in this district where you find young women who are there, who have nothing to do, who wake up to look after the families for whatever reasons. We are coming from a case where we had second Friday in 2023. I hear most of you, you're referring to Idai. Idai was a baby as compared to Freddy. And you go check your statistics. This is the fact. Freddy claimed more than 600 lives of Malawians. As I'm speaking, more than 500 people are nowhere to be seen till date just because of second Friday. And these people are people who have families. These people are people who left kids who are there. Children who are now orphans just because their parents had to be washed away with second Friday. These are the children who are there. These are the young women maybe who are now parents looking over their little ones because of second Friday. And now, months after, we now have El-Nino, which has caused the drought. Just imagine, somebody is coming from recovery from second Friday, and now she is just automatically by default moving from this to another. Imagine the life of such a girl who is out there looking maybe after the family, looking after the little ones whom she was left with. And this is the same person who during second Friday was living in a camp which had maybe a single toilet, and that single toilet was used by more than 200 people who were at the camp. And this is the lady who is a grown-up who also faces menstruation. And in the camp, due to whatever reasons, I don't know how our government operates, but you notice at most times we are reactive, not proactive.
As Malawi we were warned, we'll have second Friday, we'll have second Friday. It was the government bringing the messages to us. They were using whatever means to preach to us that we'll have second Friday. They knew the impacts which were to come. But what happened? How come we lost lives? How come we're talking about more than 500 people still missing up to date? Where are they? Are they alive? What does the Constitution say? They have to wait for 7 years for them to be declared dead. So that's the kind of a person, a kind of a woman, a young woman who is living in Zambia currently. Are you sure this person is traumatically alright? Psychologically, is she fine? Is she going to perform? Is she going to live her way the way others live? It's not possible. How about education life? Is she going to do better in her studies? No way. Does she even have time to go to school? She doesn't. So these are the effects of the climate change which is happening. And then the saddest part, you look at it and you understand that Africa is not a larger contributor to the climate change. And here are our heads of state discussing about industrialization. What is it that we want to industrialize as Africa? I mean, what? They're still the big companies, the big boys from wherever they are. They're the ones to industrialize. How about for us, who get the burdens? The gases, the emission of the gases into the, they are the things which will affect Africa, which will affect our region, the SADC. So in whatever we do, we need to talk to these people and tell them, okay, in whatever you do, please consider people over the profits. Because we should take note that these people are there wherever they stay and discuss these matters, there are profits which are gained. They talk about industrialization, they're there to make money. They'll make money, big chunks of money. They'll get the profits. How about a person? They come up with the austerity measures. You cut this, you cut this, you cut this, still putting the burden on that young woman who is there in the Zambia district. So in overall, in concluding, what I would say is, let's value the human face. Let's put the human face to whatever we are doing. This climate has affected us, and it will continue to affect us if we don't stand up. Maybe if we try, like she indicated, we try to do irrigation. This industrialization, let's call for it to be eco-friendly industrialization. Let it be green industrialization. Let them not do the normal industrialization. Because if they do that, we're still, I don't know. Thank you.